Hey everybody, happy Friday. Welcome to episode 6 of Leadership Live, where we're going to be discussing leadership and influence. We've got an amazing guest coming on with us today, our good friend Joshua Berglan, and he is the host of Morning Gratitude with the Mayor. He's actually been doing a lot of amazing work lately. There's Jared. All right, let's bring Jared on. There we are.
Hey.
Hi. We did it.
We did it. Congratulations.
Right. Yes. Welcome. So yeah, just letting everybody know that we're here today to talk about leadership and influence. We live in a world where social media is literally taking over. And I think that this is a really great opportunity for businesses, business owners, and managers, anybody in leadership really, to take advantage of this opportunity to expand the work that they're doing, expand the service that they're doing, the impact that they have with the people that they are trying to serve, and really grow in this new space. So very excited to talk about this topic today and really what it means to be a leader and grow your influence in the social media sphere.
Love it.
So we've got an amazing guest, Joshua Berglan, who's going to be joining us. Do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, for sure. So Josh is a good friend of both Natalia and myself. I think Natalia mentioned, he has a show, Morning Gratitude with the Mayor. And this guy has interviewed probably hundreds. He can tell us how many he's interviewed, but lots of people in a lot of different spaces, leaders in all sorts of different industries and roles, and just has a good, wide and deep knowledge of what leadership actually looks like. And so we're excited. His show just got picked up by iHeartRadio. So, he's going places, and we're just thrilled to be a part of Journey. Happy to have him on the show and excited to learn from him. So let's bring him on.
All right. Let's get us on here. Josh, you're coming on.
The bell? Wait.
There he is.
Hello, the legend.
Is it new? Or did you guys just where did that come from? That kind of freaked me out.
Wait,
which part?
What part? Yeah.
The ding ding and the introduction. I'm unworthy of that. Thank you.
Oh, no way. How are
you guys?
We're doing
So
awesome. How are you doing?
I'm good. I've had a weird morning. A great morning. Had an amazing interview
busy morning.
with Monica. Went a direction I was not expecting, and then I just had another interview in person that, again, it started out going, okay, well, this is the typical stuff, it's fine, and then this window opened to discuss race, and I was just, it was everything that I hoped it would be, and I want to do it again. It gave me, it's so important, like truth and realness and your truth, like each individual person's truth is so important. Like I want to hear it.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things that we love most about your show, Josh, is it's not designed to bring on who is the most known, who's the most influential. It's designed to bring on true leaders in whatever way they're leading so that their message can be heard. And so we have just tons of respect for that, because when we think about leadership, that's a big part of what it is. It's authentic, it's real, and it's not always what everybody expects it to be. And so we're kind of interested from your perspective with all the interviews that you've done, how do you see social media playing a role in the development of leaders and the creation of leaders? What are you seeing there in terms of that?
Man, that's a good question. And I've never thought about that before. The real reason, ask me the question one more time, because I want to make sure I answer this correctly with my own truth.
So how do you see social media playing a role in the development of leaders in the space? How do you see it, bringing them about, developing them, giving them almost daylight, right?
Well, yeah, because it's giving everybody the opportunity to have a voice. It's the regular person. We're all God's children, but I mean, the people that would be like, oh, little old me, I deserve to have a voice. Damn right you do. Absolutely. We all have a voice and we all have a message that needs to be heard by somebody. So everyone has the opportunity to be a leader. And what it's doing is proving, like the people like yourself, that when you put out your message, then it goes, maybe a little seed is planted in somebody's mind or their heart or their soul that says, I want to speak, I want to talk, but I've been held down by people my whole life. And I have a husband that doesn't want me to talk, or my parents won't let me say anything. And, or I don't get to talk at the dinner table, but I have a lot to say and I have ideas that matter. It plants that seed.
Absolutely.
The more they see people talk, the more they see people like, I'm going to do this. And now all of a sudden they have an opportunity to talk. So you see people like Mary Sterling, who probably would have never, ever thought to have a voice. Lives in some small town in Mississippi, right? Who's got an amazing story that is inspiring hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Love that.
She's inspiring others to do that. And it's going to help people rise up and have self-confidence and know that whether their leadership is for one person or for thousands or millions, it gives people that opportunity. Because we have this as a tool. This Facebook Live and YouTube, it's all free. It's a platform that can be created, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It can just be holding your phone and talking.
So let's get into that, because I'm curious. I mean, you've done tons of interviews. You've talked with people all over the world in lots of different places and times and roles. How do you define leadership? And then two, how has that changed for you as you've been having these interviews?
What was the second part of the question?
The second is how has your maybe opinion or perspective of what leadership is, how has that changed through the interviews that you've had, the interactions that you've had, the people that you've met?
I don't really know how to answer that necessarily. It's proven that authenticity in truth is everything. And it's not about coaching. To me, it's about mentoring. To me, it's about, instead of talking down and telling people what to do, it's let's work together. Let's talk. Let's talk.
Absolutely. I want to jump in here, Josh, and if you could, just for our audience, one, I want to say hi to everybody who's jumped on here. Looks like Greg's on here. We've got Ivan. We've got Jim. How's it going, Jim? And we've got Keanu. Hi, Keanu. It's good to see all of you. For those of you who are joining us today on the show to talk about leadership and influence and what it really means to expand yourself and your business and your message into the world of social media and what that looks like, and then also how to show up as a leader in the social media sphere, and then also how to find yourself within that place. Because I think a lot of people are not sure about going onto social media because they don't know who to be or how to be or what to say, and they find themselves really facing this sense of fear because they think that they're not going to do it the right way. And Josh, I think you are such a great example of not only of what is possible, but really being able to share the messages that other people have and give them the opportunity to be heard for the first time. So I would love to hear where that inspiration came from you, what your dream is, and what it is that's brought you into this space to create something of your own of this magnitude.
Hold on. If they don't know how to speak the truth, then they shouldn't get on the camera. You shouldn't create content based on, look at me and what I have. Your content, if you want to do this, whatever this is, just speak your truth because somebody needs to hear it.
Right.
You don't need to be scared to speak the truth because it's your truth. Who cares? You're not going to please anybody. You're not going to please everybody. You're not going to make everybody happy. Just speak your truth.
Right.
That's the only message you need to do. If you feel like crap that day and you want to express why, share it. No one wants to see. I got to be careful about calling people out. Gotta be careful. no one cares. No one can relate to flashy things. And like there's a small population. Look at my Ferraris. Look at this. Look at that. There's a small population that can go, oh, I can relate because I got 2 of them. I got 4 of them. The masses that need to hear the message can't relate to that. So they look at it lustfully. And that puts us in a state of inauthenticity too.
Right.
So your truth is the only message that you need to have.
Absolutely. So what is it that, so what is it? Beautiful, beautiful answer and beautiful message. And I think that it's so true. And I think that is really what should be at the foundation and the core of any work that people are bringing to social media and to get, again, spread their message in a way that's personal, that's relatable, and that is absolutely true to who they are and what it is that they're trying to do. My question for you is, again, in the work that you're doing, what led you to this place, and what would you say were the greatest contributing factors to being able to deliver the message in the way that you do?
I was inspired by a friend that was posting daily gratitude on Facebook. And I go, that's cool. I wanted an excuse to do video and to do content. My dream was to be a talk show host. That's all I've ever wanted to do. Hey, I hate sales, hate it. I'm not a sales guy. I'm not a business guy either. I mean, even I've been in business and I have a great company, but I don't look at myself as a businessman. Like, I'm just passionate about people. And when people ask me what I do, I don't even like talking about it because I just like to help people. I like to find a way to help people. And if my ability is to help raise people up and give them a voice to have their message heard, then I would prefer that over being the world's greatest salesperson. But I saw this and I was inspired, and I go, this gives me an excuse. And so I just started with my phone. I was doing it outside on the rooftop of a hotel. And I think it was just called Morning Gratitude. I changed the name like 50 times. I kept playing with it, but it was still about gratitude. And I never did it at the same time. It was always different. But then all of a sudden I started noticing people popping up on the screen. And I was like, wait a second, I can add them in? I'm like, well, it's way more fun to have other people talk about themselves than me. And I was like, I want to interview people. And so I was trying it on the phone, and it was just awkward, and I couldn't get people to join, and they were scared. And I was like, this sucks. And like around this time, I had a show that was going on Fox Business fall through. I shot an episode for Fox, and then immediately they said, and I'd never done TV. And they gave me an opportunity to start my own show. And I said, only if I can do it with, like, I want to do it my idea. I want to empower. I want to be able to, instead of like showing all the flashy things people have, I want to show the passion and purpose behind the brand. And anyway, so that they were all for it, but it fell through. And I was heartbroken because I was like, oh, this is my shot. Okay. I thought this vision that I had since I was 7 years old was this real thing, and it was going to happen. And then it crashed. It fell through. And then I went and heard TD Jakes speak. And I say this all the time. I'm sure you've heard me say it a million times, but I heard him say the blessing is in the breaking. And the second thing I heard him talk about was, instead of focusing on the things that you do not have, focus on what you do have. And he was using the analogy of an airplane that loses a wing. Like, you can focus on, oh crap, I have one wing and I'm going to crash. Or you could find a way to steer that baby home.
Yeah.
And I go, I have no money. I don't know how I'm going to pay rent. I don't know how I'm going to do anything. But I have Wi-Fi, and I have this show. I have this show, and people seem to like it. So I'm going to start taking the show seriously, and I'm going to schedule it, and I'm going to start interviewing people, and I'm going to do the show that was supposed to go on Fox Business, and I'm going to prove that it freaking works, and I'm going to prove that it's going to help people, and I'm going to prove that this idea in my head, in my heart, is real. Sorry,
You're good, man.
No, that was really beautiful.
So I took TD Jake's advice and I started focusing on what I do have. And Morning Gratitude with the Mayor was born in the way that people see it now. And it's working. And it doesn't matter. The views don't matter. I mean, it's cool. Like, I mean, I have to be honest with you. When you see 10,000 views for the first time, or 5,000, or even 1,000, it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. But the interactions and the comments and the private messages from people, like, because it's not about me, man. The views feed the ego. I'm not gonna lie, but knowing that somebody was helped and inspired and somebody was able to raise money for their charity or help their business and bring them clients, like that's awesome, man. And then, you know, and having the opportunity to, you know, to go on iHeartRadio on an established channel is awesome. It's such a blessing, but it's no way near. Like, God's not done with me yet. And that's nowhere where I plan on stopping. But I'm fueled every day by knowing that someone's message is going to get heard by somebody that needs to hear it, and that is fantastic.
So Josh, what do you say in those? I'm just getting a little bit of feedback, but so you've now built something that it's easy for other people to look at and be like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. He's getting 5,000, 10,000 views. What do you say to that person who's just step one? They're just now starting to get their voice out. What would you say are the top, you know, for you, from your perspective, what are the top 3 things that person should focus on, pay attention to, keep track of in order to continue in the same journey, so that they're not feeling discouraged, that they don't have what you have just yet? What are those top things that they need to focus on or pay attention to?
Their truth. And I mean, I mean that. It's all about their truth and being authentic. And people know, like, these people, the flashy, showy people that you see, and it's real easy to get intimidated when you see some people that are in this space have hundreds of thousands of views and millions of views. It's easy to let that intimidate you, especially if you're competitive. I'm competitive by nature. And it's easy to allow that to discourage you. But the thing is, the fakeness is apparent, and that bothers me, and it bothers other people. And that's not the crowd you're looking for. The crowd you're looking for is not even a crowd. It's for the one person in the audience that needs to hear what you have to say that is your truth that day. There's no 3 things. It's one. Your truth, period.
So how would you suggest for people when they're facing their own fear to get over that and just get on and show up anyway?
Okay, that's a great question. I like that question a lot. And so, a little confession, I think I've talked about this before. I get so freaking nervous every time. I was playing music before this interview because
I don't believe that for a second. This guy doesn't get nervous. I'm not buying it.
No.
Show me the pit stains.
If you watch a video, we interviewed Bradley Reichman, and Melissa Hull was with me. Shout out to Melissa. Hope you're feeling better. Melissa, Karen, we were in the car. We were driving to Orange County, and I was freaking out. I was breathing. and I was freaking out. And they're like, what the heck is wrong with you? And I go, play music. Because the music, and I start dancing. Like, when people see me wiggle before my show, because it's not really dancing, it's because I'm a nervous wreck.
Right.
But I do that. I play the music to distract myself. I breathe, I play the music, I dance, and then all of a sudden I forget that I'm nervous and I just go into it. And I've cried, I've bawled my eyes out on shows, I've broken down when I talk about my kids, I let it all out. I don't hold back, because that's the one thing that I know that I have is my truth and my voice and my message. And I also have the confidence in knowing God kept me alive for a reason. and I'm robbing people if I'm not honest. If I hold back, I was told, you can't tell people you've been in jail 6 times. You can't tell people that you were a drug abuser and a woman, like every negative bad thing that I talk about. You can't talk about that. Why? It's my show. And someone needs to hear my message. And I'm not saying that cocky, but I know for a fact, because when I was 7 years old and I was molested for the first time of many, I know for a fact, because I saw the vision that God placed on my head about what I was going to do with my life. When I was in jail, when I was in that jail cell the 6th time, after I gave my life to Christ, and I saw the vision of what I was supposed to do, I know why I'm alive. So there's nothing that anyone can say, and I don't mean this arrogantly. I don't live my life for anything other than Him and sharing my truth and why He kept me alive, because my message needs to be heard by somebody.
Right.
Somebody out there, somebody else out there has something similar.
I think that's a powerful message. I mean, we're about helping build better leaders. We want them everywhere. We want them in our schools, in our homes, in our companies. We want better leaders. And so, I just want to thank you for your vulnerability, your openness to share where you've come from, because I think too often leaders, they don't want to share those weaknesses. And just like you're saying, they're told and encouraged to not say when you're wrong, to not talk about your weaknesses or say, I don't know. And so I think 2 things that come out as you're talking here, as a leader, be vulnerable, be open about who you are, what you're good at, what you're not good at. Just be true and be authentic. And the other thing is just to make sure that you recognize the weight of responsibility. If you're in a formal leadership role, you impact other people's lives. You fire someone, they can't pay their bills. They can't take care of their kids or their family. They can't do the things that they have responsibility for. And so as a leader, if you step into a formal role, you have to honor that responsibility in a very intentional way. And if you're not in a formal role, you still have that capability to be able to influence other people and support them and help them achieve what they want to achieve. And so I love the idea of making sure that you're vulnerable, making sure that you're continuing to be open, and really recognize the magnitude of being a leader, because it really is not just something that, I've got the corner office, I've got the big title, I've got all the followers. It has impact, and people are going to make sacrifices to follow you. And so if you're not true, if you're not authentic, then those sacrifices, they're going to leave you, they're going to leave someone else, in some cases, totally destitute, totally desolate of value. And that's what we as leaders, especially formal, really, really have to avoid.
And I'm a different, I'm probably not the most appropriate fit for your show, other than the fact, because
you're already on, man. You made it. We're not letting you out.
But I will say that I think leadership is truly about being willing to be vulnerable with your team, because if you can obviously as the CEO, the president, you're on a pedestal anyway, right?
Right.
But when you can get down on the ground and hang out with your janitor, you can hang out with your, whatever, your secretary, you can talk with them and show them that you care. Those people will run through a freaking brick wall for you. And those are the kind of people that you want. Those people that are going to stay late on their own to get the job done. Those are the people, like when you're willing to lower yourself, ground yourself with your team, the people that you're leading, they see that. And they'll do anything in the world for you if you're willing to do that.
And I want to even say it's not even lowering yourself. It's recognizing that
I'm trying to
the field is level, right? Like you are on their same level. And I mean, I remember when I first got into one of my senior management positions, I literally remembered at a company gathering being shepherded over to this group of senior leaders and being told like, hey, this is where you hang out now. And I just remember sitting there thinking, no, hold on. The past 6 years, I've been with everybody else. And that doesn't change today because I now have a new title. And so I just think too often just in general, we have to recognize we're on the level playing field. Janitor, CEO, president, whoever it is, we're all in the same race. We're all in the same, game, trying to figure it out, trying to do our best. We've got strengths, we've got weaknesses. And so true leaders are recognizing that. And that's what I think opens up the door for more vulnerability, more openness to actually add value. And you're right. That's where loyalty is sown. And that's where that trust emerges, that people, you don't have employees then quitting and going to the same company down the street doing the exact same job for one difference, somebody else.
So I think I'm going to jump in here, guys. Sorry. I was inspired by everything that you guys are saying. And I think that this translates to social media and the way that we're showing up as leaders on social media, because we have to be willing to not only just be vulnerable, but recognize that we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people, what they've done, what they've accomplished, where they're going, the audience that they're seeking, right? And just really not to sound, what is the word, cliche or whatever, but do you. At the end of the day, you need to show up and do you. Do what it is that makes you feel good. Do what it is that makes you capable of sharing your message with full passion, full power, full presence. And I think that a lot of times what we're doing or what we're seeing is that people are spending a lot of time online saying, well, I can't do that because they're comparing themselves to someone else, as opposed to just going in with the service in mind, with their message in mind, with their vision in mind, and showing up in their true, authentic selves, fully ready and prepared to share with others. And I think, again, being willing to be humble enough to know that you're going to make mistakes. It's okay that you're afraid, that your fear doesn't need to be paralyzing for you. I think a lot of people say, well, I'm just not ready yet. And I often say, you're never going to be 100% ready. I mean, even for me, just like you said, Josh, right before you came on, you were feeling nervous. I get nervous before every single episode, right? And I mean, it's not like I haven't been doing this nearly as long, but I was in a space where I was speaking on a daily basis in front of large groups. And every single time I would get in front of that group, didn't matter how many times I'd seen those people, right, repeatedly, even throughout the day, I still got nervous. And it's because I care so much about the message that I'm delivering, about the service that I'm delivering, and about bringing value to people. And so I think that we have to fully prepare ourselves that fear is normal. You're going to feel awkward. Mistakes are going to be made, but the people who are there who truly value what it is that you have to say are going to stay and listen no matter what. So you have to show up, because otherwise you won't really be able to help them and serve them in the way that you're being called to, if you decide to let fear of making mistakes or fear of not being perfect or fear of comparing yourself to other people hold you back from delivering the message,
Yeah. Everything. Well, there's been things in my life I've been afraid of that I should have been afraid of, but typically it's always on the other side of fear that the greatest things come out for me. Every time. And at the same time, it doesn't have to be that difficult. I didn't have to make things so challenging on myself. I could have just stepped into my purpose a long time ago and I wouldn't have all the baggage that I've created after 38 years of craziness. That said, now it allows me to go, well, it could be worse.
Right.
What's the worst that can happen? So it's a little bit more freeing for me. But at the same time, I think the more that we walk away from what we're called to do, I think the more miserable our life is. Because joy is in every step of living your purpose and pursuing that. And it doesn't matter if it's, your calling is to be the best CEO in the world, or if it's going to be the janitor that gets inspired, that comes up with a creative idea and is able to launch their own little empire. Something before the question, I love the CEOs that have the open door policy where they want to hear people's ideas. Because sometimes when you're in the den with people, it's hard. You're all looking down here. You've got this tunnel vision. But if you get the person that's kind of on the outskirts and they're just allowed to watch and they're observing, it's amazing the ideas that those people have. I know some people that have been in very suppressed work cultures that, oh my gosh, man, if you talk to them and you hear their ideas, why is no one listening to you? You could transform a company. And I encourage that all leaders that are listening to the show, all people in a position of authority, if you're not listening to all of your people or have some type of policy where you're willing to hear ideas, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, I can walk down Little Italy in San Diego and talk to some of the homeless people, and you should hear some of the amazing ideas. There's been ideas for my show that have come from homeless people.
I think we've probably made that point so many times on this show. It always seems to come back to, hey, if you don't have mechanisms in place for communication within your company, within your business, within your team, mechanisms for feedback for yourself and for others, I mean, man, you're just missing the boat. You're sitting in your ivory tower and you're expecting everybody else to run along below you and get things done. So great point, Josh. We appreciate having you on the show. I know you're busy. We want to let you go. But before we do, we've got a question for you. So we're going to give you a giraffe. And it's an amazing giraffe. It's a live giraffe. And there's only 2 rules with the giraffe. 1, you can't sell that giraffe. And 2, you can't give it away. What do you do with your giraffe?
I live in Little Italy, man. So we're going to go to bar 1. We're going to go down to Gaslamp. And we're going to let it be free outside. And because I live in a high rise, there's a little garden area outside of where I live that we could make some space for it. It's probably going to be very expensive and I may get fined a lot. But I figure the donations from being able to cruise around downtown San Diego with my giraffe, I think it'll make up for it. And plus, I'm the freaking unofficial mayor of San Diego.
That's right.
So who's going to say anything?
Yes, that's very true. Very true. Hey, Josh, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your insight, your continued leadership, and we'll definitely look forward to having you on again.
Yeah, man. Thanks, guys. Take care. Thanks you so
Josh.
much.
Thank you so much, Josh. All right. Well, those are some wise words. I love it.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. A lot of passion that guy has.
Absolutely.
So good takeaways. Hopefully everybody took some good takeaways around just the idea of being very authentic. I mean, we think about leadership. Right. I mean, it doesn't have to always be a show. It doesn't always have to be, trying to get out there and have all the right answers and do everything perfectly and do everything the best. It just doesn't work like that. So definitely love that insight.
Absolutely. I think, when it comes to getting online and showing up as a leader in the social space and trying to build your influence, I think you have to ultimately get over your own self, just to be very, very frank about it. I think that, it's so easy. Again, every single time we get online, I'm nervous, I'm sweating, I'm feeling uncomfortable, and I mean, for a while, there was a long period of time where I allowed that to be the reason why I wasn't getting on. And I felt so much that I wanted to do the work, but again, I was allowing my fear to control me. And I think that you owe it to your purpose and the people that you want to serve to show up and to show up boldly. And that's ultimately what it means. It means showing up boldly, willing to do what needs to be done, regardless of the fear that you're feeling or the insecurity, and know that you're going to make mistakes. There are mistakes that are made every single time that we go live. Every single time.
Only a handful every time.
Only a handful, exactly, And I think that, you have to be able to embrace those mistakes and learn from them and see them as opportunities to grow, as opposed to judging yourself for them or holding it against yourself that you're not executing things perfectly. I remember a few years ago, I don't remember who I was speaking to, but I was in a new environment and I was so overly apologetic for the mistakes that I was making or for not knowing all the answers or for feeling awkward in a new space. And this gentleman that I was speaking to, he looks at me and he says, "Natalia, we all begin in the beginning." And I don't know why that struck me as just so profound. It just never occurred to me that we all begin as beginners, and not a single person. The only difference is probably time time and effort, you know? So, I mean, this is actually goes back to something that I was speaking about with a group of women leaders the other night, where we tend, in this idea where we're comparing ourselves to other people, you know, it's so easy, especially in this world of social media where we're seeing people showing up all the time, you know, over and over and over again. And they're people that have been in the field for a really long time. I mean, Tony Robbins is just a perfect example. I mean, he's been in the game for what, 30 years? Yeah. I mean, he's been in the game for a really long time, and people think, well, I'm not Tony Robbins. And it's like, I don't think anybody's expecting you to be Tony Robbins. Right. I don't think anybody would have that expectation of you to show up as him, to speak like him, to deliver like him, you know. And the thing is there's no comparison, because you should not be comparing yourself to somebody who's been 30 years, 10 years, 1 year into the game. You know, wherever they're at, like, it's just not a matter of comparing, but you can learn so much from their experience and also from your inexperience, you know? And so you have to be willing, go in with a sense of humility. And then again, that growth mindset, willingness to learn, and just put yourself out there, because as soon as you do it, everything after that becomes easier. You know, it's not going to be perfect, but it will be easier.
So I want to go there for a second, because you actually mentioned last week a little bit about the growth mindset as well. So I want to give just people an overview of what that actually is, because I think that has to do with a lot with what we're talking about right now. Right. So the growth mindset came out of Stanford. Carol Dweck was a psychologist who kind of coined the phrase, which essentially is that we have two mindsets. We either see things from a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And the growth mindset means that we see challenges and difficulties as opportunities to learn. We see there's not really failure, because even through failure, we learn and we grow. And so having growth mindset, people with a growth mindset are more likely to try new things. They're more likely to experiment and be open to new opportunities and different things, because they know that they're going to learn coming through it. In the contrast, the fixed mindset is based on status. And it essentially says, well, whatever my status is, my label is, I want to maintain that label. I want to maintain that status. And so I actually avoid things that will indicate that I'm not actually that, whatever it is, that status. So a good example is, you know, when you say you're smart, if you believe you're smart, that can be a fixed mindset if it keeps you from doing things that might expose where you're not smart or where you don't know something. Right. And there was in the book, there's an example where they actually had students in a foreign country who they didn't know the language. And so the school offered basically free classes to teach the language. And they kind of primed them first, and they tested if they were growth mindset or fixed mindset. Right. And what they found was that the people with the fixed mindset actually didn't take the class that would teach them the new language in the country they were in, where they didn't know the language. Because going into a situation where you don't know, you don't have all the answers, that would challenge the idea, the fixed mindset that I am smart, or I am a status. And so we have to be aware of that. I think in leadership, when we talk about all the things we've been talking about today, so much of that comes into play, where when we're trying to be, when we're not open to being vulnerable, then it's because we're trying to protect that status. Right. I'm the boss. Right. I have all the answers. I'm right all the time. Versus the growth mindset, where it's like, I don't know, let's figure it out, see what happens. Right. Let's all try something new and maybe fail and learn something from it.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, again, you want to make sure that you're going into we oscillate, I would say, between the two. So no one is ever just purely a fixed mindset or purely a growth mindset. You know, chances are, again, when I was in that place, before you and I decided to start doing this together, Jared, when I was in that place, that being held back by fear, I was in a fixed mindset, because I was seeing everything moving forward as a reflection of who I was, and a permanent reflection of that. Yeah. And so finally I was able to get over that and then shift into that growth mindset, where I was able to say, you know what, wherever I start, I'll be able to grow from there, and I'll be able to evolve and mature, and again, just gain so much insight from this experience. So really giving yourself the opportunity to be open, and it is about being vulnerable. And then also it is about being courageous. You know, you have to be willing to face yourself in these moments. And I hate, you know, one of the things I hate doing is rewatching our show. because I have to give myself, we do it every week, right? But I mean, I have to give myself time because I'm so emotionally charged up that I am my own worst enemy. I am my most critical judge. You know, I'm the one that's holding the highest expectation of myself. And so when I go back and rewatch, all I can think immediately is where I didn't do it right. And we've even talked about this, right? I immediately ask you, okay, well, what do you think? You know, and instead of looking at the things that I did right and then using that as the platform from which I continue to grow and evolve as, you know, as we do this together. So just go in knowing that to expect that, but then also knowing that you don't have to let that hold you back. If you have to be willing to be courageous and show up regardless. And just also it's time under the belt. You know, you have to give yourself opportunity to practice. You know, I feel like every single time I'm like, all right, it's our sixth opportunity to practice this thing, you know, and get it right, or at least make it better and to add more value, you know. So yesterday, I think I went live for the first time in our group, and I was by myself, and I realized, wow, this feels really uncomfortable being up here by myself, you know, and I had to own that both for the people that were watching and own it for myself and say, you know what? This doesn't feel great yet. It feels much better to be live with somebody else because then it's a conversation, right? And I also don't like being the person that's fully there for everybody to be focusing purely on me, right? I'd much rather give somebody else the stage, you know. But again, these are things that we have to get over within ourselves and be willing to face and just kind of roll with.
So let's just do hypothetically here, kind of going based off what Josh said too. So Josh made the point, you know, talking about kind of there's a lot of fakeness going on out there. We think, you know, when we have leaders, I think sometimes it's hard to be vulnerable as well.
Right.
And so I don't know if I'd use the word fake as what they are, but certainly protective of ego. What advice would you have for that leader who might be sitting here listening and maybe acknowledging that, you know what, maybe I have just protected my ego too much. Maybe I have kind of set myself up with this idea that I've got all the answers. I do everything right. People are here to serve me. What advice would you have for them to start to maybe move the other direction?
You know, I don't think that it's any matter of advice. I think you just have to set the date. I think you just have to say, this is when I'm going to show up and this is when I'm going to do it. And then from that point on, it's just kind of like crossing the line. You know, it's just taking that step in that direction and taking action. I think more than anything, your mindset changes when you get into action, right? And so you can sit there and try to talk yourself into it or try to do the self-talk and change the way that you think about things. But usually one side's going to win, right? Because the brain just naturally likes to choose what it's comfortable with.
Sure.
And so if you're living within that place of fear or within that place of ego, you're just comfortable there, you know? So throwing yourself into a space where you have to show up is really, I think, the best way to get over that and then shift gears. I mean,
what's that first action? What's the first action?
Scheduling a date.
Okay. So I write the date. Then what? That first day, what do I do differently? As far as showing, like getting, are you talking about getting on live? Oh, no. Well, I mean, no, we're talking about just leaders in general. So the reason why I ask is because I think sometimes it's hard to kind of retract from where we've been, right? Mm-hmm. We might have kind of established this pattern of protecting ego in the business or, you know, kind of setting ourselves up in this way. And so now you want to come back. And so people are going to know, you know, employees are going to see that you're acting differently. Other peers and leaders are going to see that you're acting differently.
Okay.
So what does that look like? What are those kind of steps? Because I'm with you. I think you do have to draw the line in the sand and say, okay, I'm not doing it this way anymore.
Right.
But then you also have to actually now have different behaviors. You've got to change things and do things differently. So what does that actually look like?
Okay. So step one is drawing the line in the sand and deciding that you want to be different, right? And then step two is, I think, especially in the work environment, you know, taking the opportunity to talk to as many people as possible and share with as many people as possible what it is that you're doing and how you plan on changing it. I think that, you know, again, in my past, there were plenty of opportunities where I was doing things wrong, or I didn't like the way that I was showing up. I didn't like my mindset. I didn't like the attitude that I had. I wasn't satisfied with the results that I was getting with my team, you know? So I decided to go out and educate myself in ways that would help me overcome this within myself. But then also once I decided on a point of action, then I went to my team immediately and just owned it and said, hey, you know what, guys, like I realized that I've kind of been doing things this way, but we're going to try this out, and it's going to be a process of learning for me. So just bear with me in the process, and just know that I've decided that I want to show up in a way that's better for you guys. It's better for us. It's better for the business. So yeah, let's go.
Love
for
that.
it.
I think that's huge. I mean, I hope everybody wrote that down, because that, even just that level of kind of apology, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, that communication, that openness of, I'm trying to turn the ship around a little bit, and I'm starting with me, and this is what it's going to look like moving forward. This is the sacrifices that I'm probably going to be making, and this is what it might mean for you as my team. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, being willing to communicate with them, and just, again,
huge.
when I'm coaching my clients, I let them know, like, communicate if you're making changes in your life. One, if you're making changes, or two, if you're trying to achieve something, right? You have a goal for yourself. You want to communicate that with as many people as possible. And you also want to communicate it with a level of energy that implies to your brain that it's like something you're looking forward to, right? So, and the more you speak about it, and that's why I encourage, again, my clients do this all the time, is the more you speak about it, the more comfortable you'll feel saying it. And then the more energy you'll be able to put into what it is that you're saying. And then that's what you'll end up doing. So
love it. What if we think about the business? So I know we kind of started this show about how do we use social media to elevate our level of influence. So, and I know you've had experience with companies and kind of leading some of the marketing efforts and some of the social media strategies. Can you talk a little bit about that and how leaders should be thinking about that?
Right. Okay. So I think that, there's two ways that we can be thinking about using social media to show up more boldly as leaders, and then also to grow our influence. And so in one aspect, and I would love to touch on this, is that, again, as a business owner or entrepreneur, there's just showing up and sharing your message, right? But then there's also doing that within the corporate context, right? If you're working for a business as a manager, as a leader in some way, and being able to utilize social media to either bring your team closer together or to stay fully engaged with your members, or your clients or your customers. So in my experience, at least, I think everybody knows here that my experience is primarily in fitness management. And so I would say, blessed with the opportunity to learn from this company that was really forward thinking in getting engagement or taking their business to social media. And honestly, I hated it. And I think this is something that, it's really funny, but it's also something that I think we all have to be willing to acknowledge, that people say, well, I don't want to do Facebook, or I don't want to do Instagram, or it sucks, or I hate it, right? I hated it too. I did not want to put myself out there online, mostly because I was very protective of my private life, and I did want to keep it that way. But again, you really have to think about what it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? You're not putting yourself out there just to show off or just to get attention. Again, you're going with the service in mind. So at this juncture, they had us doing a few things using social media, using Facebook particularly. So all of them had to do with groups, and then also having a professional page. So as a manager, and even when I wasn't a manager, but even before I became a manager, as a part of the team, my job was to find opportunities to more greatly engage with our member base. Now, again, if you don't have members, right, you still have clients or you have customers, right? So you can still engage with them in a more meaningful way and use social media to do that. And the way that you do that is to highlight them. And I think that is the biggest thing that people forget or lose sight of when it comes to being on social media, is that it doesn't have to be about you at all. You make it about them, right? Give your clients the opportunity to take center stage, show your appreciation for them, right? Show that their consistency with their engagement in your business matters to you. So there's that component of it. There's also the educational component of it, right? So we had people coming in who were new to fitness, who needed to learn how to better lose weight, who just lacked the educational resources to help them better along their way. And so we were that educational platform for them, right? So online, whether it was on the group, on the page, or personally with our members, because we were friends with them through our personal pages as well, we were sharing educational resources with them, right? And so it doesn't even need to be your own published resources. You can very easily find other things online to share. But even then, it's coming from you. And so that, because it's coming from you, it has value, it adds value. And it engages them in a more meaningful way with the work that you're doing, right? And then so the other component I would say is getting into the groups and creating an online or virtual community for people who really love the work that you're doing in your business to engage not just with you, but with each other and more people that are participating in your business in some form or fashion. So I think that's, there's so many ways to kind of more greatly engage with the people you're serving and keep what I like to call, or what was taught to me as FOMA, which is not FOMO, but FOMA, which is front of mind awareness, so that you're constantly keeping your clients, your members engaged with your business in the front of their minds at all times.
Yeah.
And this is what the best businesses have done. I mean, Apple, like how often are we talking about Apple, right? Or how often are we talking about Nike? Or, it just
as my battery dies, a lot.
Oh, all the time, right? Especially now. So the other component of that is that you can, use social media as a better way to engage the people within your business as well, right? So your teams, and you can use the groups specifically for this as a very, sometimes fun if your team's up for it, but at least more efficient way and fast way of communicating information, of keeping everybody on the same page, of sharing information more readily, so that it's accessible. Because here's the thing, we're all online all the time. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? So if people make the excuse of saying, oh, well, I can't get on Facebook, it's like, you're always on Facebook. You can pop on Facebook to check a group for the most relevant information pertaining to your team, and then also find ways to make it fun. I think that's the most important thing, is find ways to keep the groups fun. A side note, I actually had a colleague of mine had chosen to create a group for his team that was specifically for his team to be able to complain about him whenever they wanted. So there's ways to keep it interesting, keep it fun, and make it worth their while.
Well, what I love about that, I mean, that's kind of one of those mechanisms we talked about of having communication. And so, from a company standpoint, if you have these types of groups, you hear the feedback. You see what people are saying or not saying. They're not engaging. And then you're able to make decisions based on, what you're seeing there in the groups. And in that case, if you have a team group, then you have more mechanisms for feedback, for communication, which is just imperative. I mean, honestly, if we said it probably almost on every single show, but if you haven't had any of your employees come to you and give you feedback about something, a team meeting, or the way you showed up, or whatever it is, like, take note, go ask them, find out, do some discovery to really understand like how people are feeling. I remember one time specifically, I came in for work in the morning, and I was kind of beelining it from my office because I had a lot of work to do. And I walked in, sat down at my desk, opened my computer, started going at it, and my phone rang. And it was one of my employees, and he said, "Hey, Jared, are you mad?" And I was like, "No, I'm not mad. I'm fine." He's like, "Well, you just came in, you totally didn't acknowledge anybody, and you went straight to your office, and so we all think you're mad." And it was such a simple thing, but I now knew how they felt. So of course I got up, I went out, and I saw my staff, and talked to them, and I started doing that. Every single day when I came in, I'd go to every single person's desk, say hello, talk to them. And then before I left, I would do the same thing, because I also noticed that sometimes I would just disappear.
Right.
And even as I got promoted into higher levels, I would do that with all of my employees under me. And at one point I was going around to about 55, 60 desks in the morning, spending the first hour just talking to employees. So, but I had that mechanism in place as a manager, as a young manager of a single team, that really helped me be a better leader all throughout my career, because that one person was bold enough to call and be like, "Hey, are you mad? Like you look mad."
Yeah.
So find those people on your team, bring out those ideas, and don't take it personally when you hear it from them. When you get that criticism, don't take it personally. Same thing in your groups when you're trying to promote your business. If people don't like your business, if they're talking poorly about it, then use that as information. Okay, well, why? What am I doing that's sending that message? Is that the message I want to send? Because kind of to Josh's point, if that's your truth, oh well. You can't be everything to all people, and so you have to kind of define: is this my message? Is it my truth? Am I good with it?
Right.
But at the same time, go ahead.
Well, no, I think that's a really great point as well, because I think there's a lot of people, again, looking to get online or start sharing their message in a more powerful or more public way. And there's all those questions. Well, what if people don't like what I have to say, or what if it doesn't resonate with everybody? And one of the leaders in this business that I was working for a while back had said that if your business is making everybody happy, you're doing something wrong. And I think ultimately this is kind of where the conversation about discovering what your niche is, or really knowing what your why is, and what it is that, again, what your message is, and in the service that you're trying to provide, being very specific about that, because it's not going to appeal to everybody, but also that's okay. It's not supposed to appeal to everybody. And there's going to be people that don't like you. We live in a world, unfortunately, where bullying exists, right? On social media, there's this whole like cyberbullying or trolling or whatever. And it's so important for us to cultivate some thick skin, right? There's going to be good criticism that we're going to get from that, where people are going to provide us with feedback that maybe it hurts a little bit, but ultimately is useful, right? And so we've got to be willing to receive that, but then we also have to be strong enough to know what isn't the feedback that is, like, to be able to filter through the feedback that isn't helpful for us as well,
for sure.
And be able to identify, like, okay, you know what, that person's just being rude, and they're just, they're not being, there's a word that I'm looking for that's escaping me right now. Not purposeful, but they're just not, they're not looking, well, they are being hurtful, right? But it's just that they're really not trying to contribute to your growth. They're just trying to tear you down. And that's where that thick skin comes in. You have to be able to say, okay, well, I'm not even going to pay attention or worry about that person. But the people that are giving you really high quality feedback or critical feedback because they're trying to help you grow and evolve, and even if that's not their intent, but you see that there's room there, that's gold, because that is your opportunity to really take it up to the next level. And Brendan Burchard actually mentioned this, where he goes through all of his book reviews, right? And he gets a bunch of bad, negative reviews, right? And he sees that as the opportunity. Taking in the negative reviews is like, basically it's free consulting, because then he can just take those negative reviews and say, okay, where can I apply this to make my business better? Where can I apply this to help improve the way that I'm spreading my message or sharing my message? So I think, again, having some thick skin, having some humility, but then also being able to just determine the good from the bad, the useful from the not useful.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And at the end of the day, if nothing else, getting out there and getting on social media is going to just strengthen your courage muscles. So use social media. We're just about at time. Any last words, Natalia, before we wrap up for the day?
I think that if anything, again, building your influence starts with you showing up. So I think at the end of the day, you have to be willing to just show up, to start getting in the practice and speaking, and to be willing to share your message and to do the work to get it out there. And the people will eventually, if they're not there immediately, they will come over time. And you just have to be willing to put the time into practice and the effort to get better. So just keep at it, and don't allow yourself to be paralyzed by fear. Ultimately.
Awesome. Well, you guys are great. I can't see who's on, but do you want to give some shout outs?
Rydell, thank you so much for all your contribution. You've just been on fire all episode. We've got Shondell. Thank you so much for being here. Max says, if you can't think it, it's a dream. If you talk about it, it's possible. If you schedule it, it's real. He quoted Tony Robbins there. Thank you so much. So for all of you guys, Paul, thank you so much for your contribution. For all of you guys showing up, thank you. And we'll catch you next Friday.
Okay, join our group if you haven't yet.
Yes, right. Join our group, and we will put a link to like our page as well in the comments.
Yes,
right.
indeed.
Thanks,
all right,
guys.
everyone. Have a good weekend. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.